Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Michel Sindaha,
And I'm Lauren
and
Burns.
this is Shukaman. We are with you today from the Diwan at the Center for Contemporary Arab Studies at Georgetown, and today we bring you the inaugural episode of Shukaman.
So, this podcast was a culmination of efforts between some students in CCAS because we have all of these amazing, very fruitful conversations in the classroom and here in the Diwan, between our colleagues in the program, with our instructors. We also have a lot of amazing guest speakers and lecturers that come here, but we felt like they were really just staying here within the center, within the classroom, here in the Diwan. So we wanted to kind of bring this to a larger audience, to you as our viewers.
Yes, today we were joined by Jehad Abusalim, a Palestinian writer from Gaza. Um, Jihad is also the director of the Institute for Palestine Studies in Washington, D.C. His writings have been featured in the Washington Post, Al Jazeera, The Nation, and the Journal of Palestine Studies. He's appeared on CNN, ABC, and Democracy Now! And he's co edited the book Light in Gaza, which was published in 2002. Lauren, what did we talk with Jihad about
In 2022.
in
It's a
2022?
recent book. So we talked with Jihad about a lot of things today. We started off about like his upbringing in Deir al-Balah in Gaza, and his first and only trip to Jerusalem, which kind of led us to this larger conversation about the very fragmented Palestinian experience, especially in relation to Gaza. We also talked a lot about this emerging and changing American political landscape when it comes to Americans' views on Palestine, and of course, the brutal history that has culminated in the ongoing genocide that is happening in Gaza today.
We look forward to having you with us on this journey, and we hope to bring you some enjoyable and fruitful and educational content.
Yeah, you can follow us on Instagram at Shukaman Podcast. And we'll also upload all of our videos pretty much anywhere that you can stream a podcast. So we will have a YouTube channel, and you can find us also on Spotify, Podcast, Apple Podcasts, anywhere pretty much that you can stream a podcast, you can find us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Stay tuned, folks.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Shukaman podcast, a project led by students at Georgetown's Center for Contemporary Arab Studies to inquire beyond the margins of what is on the surface among students and experts in the field of Middle East studies. I'm Michel Sindaha.
And I'm Lauren Burns, and we're your hosts today for the podcast, Shukaman.
Today we're gladly joined by Jehad Abusalim. Jihad, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks so
Shukran.
much for joining us today. Yeah,
pleasure.
yeah. I guess maybe we could start off like we've done so much research about you, but it's nice to actually finally meet you in person. But maybe you could formally introduce yourself to us and also to our viewers for the podcast.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. The Center for Contemporary Arab Studies is a place that I highly admire, and and of course, I'm grateful for you all. My name is Jehad Abusalim. I'm Palestinian. I was born in Morocco to Palestinian parents who, left Gaza after the Six-Day War in the 1970s. And in the mid-90s, my family returned to the Gaza Strip, to Deir al-Balah, where I'm from.
Okay.
I grew up in Deir al-Balah in Gaza. It's where I spent most of my life.
Okay.
It's where I went to school, went to college, worked, started my career. I left Gaza nearly a decade ago and moved to the United States to start my graduate studies. And ever since I moved to the US, it became my new home. And I'm now, married. I live here. And as you mentioned in the introduction, I manage the US branch of the Institute for Palestine Studies. I'm a writer. I'm active on social media talking
Right.
about Palestine, and yeah, I guess that captures some of the journey.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it's good to have you here.
thank you.
I'd like to hear more about Deir al-Balah. How was it growing up there? It's were you close to the? Obviously, Deir al-Balah is right by the coast, right?
Yes, well, I mean, if you look at the map of the Gaza Strip, the Gaza Strip as a region, it's a tiny territory. It's shorter than a marathon, like some would say. And if you look at the map, the Gaza Strip expands in the north and then becomes really like tiny in the middle and then expands towards Rafah. Deir al-Balah is located in this narrow,
Narrower strip.
waist of the Gaza Strip.
Okay.
From the roof of my family's home, growing up, if you look towards the west, you see the Mediterranean Sea, and if you look east, you would see the fence separating what is today the Gaza
Wow.
Strip from what is the state of Israel. And Deir al-Balah is a small city. It
Like 100,000.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
yes, more. And of course, now there are hundreds of thousands of displaced people. We can talk about that, of course. But from the name, Deir means monastery, and Balah means, date.
Date, right?
So it's Deir al-Balah was never meant to have this large population, which,
It was a small village, I guess.
it was a small village. In the early 20th century, it had, a few hundred residents. I'm originally from there.
Okay.
My family is originally from Deir al-Balah. And after 1948, when Israel displaced hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, a lot of those refugees ended up in what is today called Deir al-Balah camp or Muaskar Deir al-Balah. And it transformed gradually from a small agricultural town famous for date palms and all sorts of crops and orchards and so on into an ever growing urban
Sure.
Right.
center. Growing up there was pretty relaxed compared to Gaza City. Deir al-Balah is it's a much smaller city compared to Gaza City. When we
course.
talk about the Gaza Strip, it's like a region with multiple cities, towns, and villages. So Gaza City is at its center, and perhaps Gaza City up until this genocide has been the largest Palestinian city
Right.
in the world. If you think about a city in the real sense, where it's Palestinians are in control, at least municipally speaking, and so Deir al-Balah compared to Gaza is a small city. It's still growing up there. You're surrounded by this agricultural identity.
Okay.
A lot of farmers, a lot of date palms.
I imagine the landscape is quite beautiful.
It is beautiful. A lot of palm
The
trees.
dates, the palm trees and
Yeah.
the sea.
Yeah, and a small port where fishermen would go to the sea and get sardines and small things like that. It's a quiet town. One of the stereotypes about Deir al-Balah is that people there go to bed early.
Really?
Yeah,
Why
because
is that?
it's like a farmer's ethic.
Okay,
Kind of,
sure.
so they go to bed
Early
early.
to rise, early to
Yeah,
to sleep.
indeed. Yeah. So like they wake up early. So where people laugh at
Is it true?
People
Is it-
joke
yeah, is
about
it
this.
true?
It is kind of true. I still naps are universal. Everybody takes a nap. Life is slower
Slower
than
pace.
a place like Gaza City, where you have like all the organizations, institutions, government centers, and all business and so on. But it changed, over the years. Still, it's known for being calm, quiet, relaxed, chill place. The distance from my house to the waterfront, like 20-minute walk. You could just
So beautiful.
like walk to the beach. Just wander around. It was nice.
Actually, one of my questions that I wanted to pose to you, you've answered it a little bit talking about your hometown, but I was reading the introduction to the book, The Light in Gaza, Writings Born of Fire, and I have this quote from your book I just want to read, which is, "The Gaza Strip is a place we hear about often on occasions that are not necessarily pleasant. An open-air prison, a besieged enclave, a territory with one of the world's highest population densities. The common thread in all of these descriptions is an attempt by experts to help their audiences relate to Gaza. However, because Gaza's experience is unique, its story and its people become abstract and challenging to explain to an outsider who has never been there, and it creates this barrier of understanding and imagination between Gaza and the outside world." And I thought this was really powerful because, as you mentioned, like, ironically, this attempt to narrate and describe Gaza as this place in a way of like pleading for humanitarian assistance or for people to care or to pay attention or to see that what is happening at the same time is a bit dehumanizing. It's kind of describing Gaza in these very negative ways. And you've just spoken so much about like your hometown and like being on the sea and people waking up early and going to sleep early, and that's like what I want to hear is like about the real Gaza. And so I'm wondering, like, kind of expanding even beyond your hometown, if you want to talk more about Gaza as a whole, like if you weren't constrained by these parameters to try to appeal to this, that, and the other, how would you describe Gaza in your own words to someone?
Um, well, it's really hard not to think about Gaza in terms of the reality
Of
that
course.
has been shaped by decades of occupation and displacement. I mean, the when we look at this, more than a century, like if we look back since the First World War until today, Gaza has seen nothing but death, destruction, and military aggression, occupation, conquest, displacement. These are major patterns that
Yeah.
shaped the place today. And still, of course, people, humans in general, tend to adapt. People, regardless of how difficult sometimes their life circumstances can be, they always try to find joy. They always try to find happiness. They always try to create meaning. They always try to create, to live. And this act of living in itself is important. It's something that I cherish and I value and I love. But then at some point we risk turning those attempts by people to live despite these circumstances into these like mythical kind of,
Romantic.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, like to think, like, look, this is so this shouldn't be normal. It shouldn't have been normal for the British to arrive in 1917 and decimate what was the old city of Gaza,
Yeah.
right? It shouldn't have been normal for the Zionist movement and then what became the State of Israel to take the Gaza district, which was one of the largest administrative districts of Ottoman and Mandatory Palestine, and reduce it into what is today this tiny and overcrowded Gaza Strip. When we think about the Gaza Strip, as I mentioned in the book, before 1948 there was no such a thing as a Gaza Strip.
Right, yeah.
It was a Gaza district, and it was a key district of Mandatory Palestine, and before that, Ottoman Palestine. And the Gaza district included more than 50 cities, towns, and villages. And overnight, the residents of many of these cities and villages, and many other cities and villages all over historic Palestine, were expelled to what became the Gaza Strip.
Right.
So the birth of the Gaza Strip was a traumatic one.
Yeah.
It's associated with with the loss of land, territory, in the national sense that we lost big chunks of our country, but also at the individual and family level.
Sure.
When we talk about a small village that was ethnically cleansed in 48, just 30-minute like north of Gaza, or we're talking about people who lost their source of livelihood, farmers who for generations toiled the soil and buried their ancestors, and had like a unique identity to the village where they lived. So the first key factor in shaping what is Gaza today is loss of land and territory, and Gaza being reduced into this small land. The second thing was, of course, displacement, because the Gaza Strip, up until the genocide, 70%, even maybe slightly more,
Are not from Gaza originally.
yeah,
Right,
they're they come sometimes from places like Jaffa or other parts of Palestine in the north, or sometimes people like
30 minutes from
people
Gaza.
like how I mentioned that from the rooftop of my house I could simply see if I look west I see the Mediterranean, east I see the fence. If you go to northern Gaza and to places like the Jabalia refugee camp, the entirety of the people of Majdal, Asqalan, they could see their city lit at night from the refugee camp.
Wow.
So there is this like sense of like injustice, but it's like injustice with like proximity. Like you could see your grandparents' land, your forefathers' land being, and Moshe Dayan said that in one of the eulogies that he like
the 60s.
in the 50s, he like read this eulogy honoring one Israeli soldiers that was killed during one of the raids of the Fidaiyin in the 50s.
What is Samu? Sumur? What raid was that?
I don't particularly remember this one, but in the 1950s, we can talk about the history in a minute. But the point of all of this, I mean, I went on a tangent here, is to just establish that it's hard to think about Gaza away from these two themes. Still, however, there is a story of life and living, and and the struggle to hold onto life and to just exist. And of course this comes with a symphony, right? Like people pursuing education and trying to travel and building, and families, art,
sports, all
political organizing, and Gaza, after 48, it was the one of the key places where Palestinian nationalism hit the reset button.
Of course,
after
it was a stronghold, and after
exactly
67,
and after 67,
something not spoken about a lot, but after 67, Gaza really put up a strong resistance to the occupation.
So there are these consistent themes in Gaza's history. Now it's a city with great potential, and it I think throughout the past century it showed that what kind of potential it could show the world despite all of these pressures and conquests and episodes, the recurring episodes of death and destruction. Now imagine if none of this happened, how Gaza could have been and where it would have been. So it's hard to think in those terms, but sometimes I
think the thing is, like, it's very easy when you're far away from a place to like just form a loose idea about it, and like especially in the West, but even in the Arab world, like Gaza is a sort of signifier, right? And often people's ideas, rightfully so, they jump to like death, destruction, and all that stuff. But I think just the image of Deir al-Balah, right? The sea, the palm trees, there's something very, I don't know, rejuvenating about that, to be able to envision it that way. Yeah. So you did your education in Gaza up until your undergrad.
Yes.
And then you came to the US for your graduate degree. So what did you study in your undergrad in Gaza, and at which university?
I studied business administration.
Okay.
Yeah. And I did so because I finished Tawjihi, which is the General Secondary Education Certificate, in 2007.
Okay.
So my, educational journey is, for me, it's not just measured by years, but it's also measured by
Events.
events.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
So, for me, I remember moving, fifth grade, between fifth grade and sixth grade, there was the second Intifada. So that was, a key marker. And then in 2006, we had the Legislative Council elections in which Hamas won
Of course.
majority seats in the West Bank and Gaza. A lot of people,
Yeah, they focus on the Gaza aspect.
they say Gazans elected, so.
Yeah, it's another excuse people use to.
Yeah, it's just like ignorance that's unchecked.
Yeah.
And then, so like there was this brief civil strife period, 2006, 2007. So, I was finishing my secondary, education, Tawjih diploma in the summer.
High school, basically.
Hamas,
Yeah.
Right,
Hamas
yeah.
took over the Gaza Strip, and so that was like a rough summer. And then the blockade begins around the time I was finishing those exams. So I had plans to travel. I applied to a couple of universities overseas. Yeah, and then the once the blockade began and Gaza was declared a hostile entity and all the crossings were closed, I waited for the crossing for like a year to open, and I just gave up at the end. So I decided, okay, I will study a major that's available in English, that's offered in English, but one where I could also focus on other things.
Okay.
Sure.
So I did my degree in business administration at Al Azhar University in Gaza, and it was a great program. I mean,
Which city is Al Azhar University in?
Gaza City.
Gaza City. Okay.
So the universities up until like a few years ago, most of Gaza's universities were in the city. So Al Azhar is located next to the Islamic University, and these were see. They say permanently closed now, so you don't know if you're thinking about them in past or present terms.
Right.
But these are, Gaza's two major universities, in addition to Al Quds Open University, which is also like a national institution, Al Aqsa University, a governmental institution. And I think by the beginning of the genocide, Gaza had up to 16 or 17 universities, colleges, community colleges, and so higher education was sacred for
Of course.
people there. So I studied business
Okay.
administration. They were teaching, like standard American curriculum, and at the same time I worked full time
Okay.
at a number of NGOs. Some are, like I worked on projects related to national reconciliation or, access to justice, youth empowerment.
Okay.
The NGO, and I
Sure,
worked in the
that's
NGO
Always
scene.
interested.
And I also volunteered with a number of youth initiatives, pushing for like more political participation for youth and so on. I also did some research. I worked as a field researcher with Birzeit University's Center for Development Studies, which is based in Gaza City. So
Okay.
it's not like an academic department, but it's like a research. I did like field research.
What were you doing?
I was so there were these were like contract-based projects. Sometimes I participated in a project to assess the impact of the 2008-2009 so-called Operation Cast Lead, which was the for me like the last major Israeli aggression on Gaza that I witnessed. In addition to the 2012 one, which was brief. But in 2008-2009, just for those who are not familiar, Israel launched a 21-day assault on Gaza, led to killing more than 1,500 people, a lot of children, destroyed. It was like was an unprecedented event and the beginning of the series of those military assaults that culminated with the genocide. So I witnessed the first strike of that war. I was at my university about to submit an assignment, and then as I was leaving, the Israelis bombed a police graduation ceremony across the street.
Yeah.
So I remember that day vividly, and I even took some pictures.
Wow.
So I participated in this field research project where I think the UNICEF and some other local organizations were assessing the impact of the 2008-2009 war on children.
Yeah.
So we'd go to schools and would fill out surveys with children. We'll ask them, questions like, "Where do you see yourself in 10 years from now?"
Okay.
And I will never forget that one time we went into this classroom in an area that saw a lot of bombing and destruction. And going through the forms, a lot of kids wrote "in the grave." Others wrote, doctors, engineers, whatever. But like a lot of kids were, those were children in like third, fourth grade. So for them, like the idea, like death was so like present and prominent. So yeah, I mean, doing these projects and of course these projects helped me later on build an understanding of Gaza that I used in talking about it outside.
Sure.
But I saw more of Gaza than the average.
Okay.
Of course, yeah.
So were you able to travel to the West Bank post 2007? It was many difficulties. I guess there were many difficulties in order to get there, but was it possible? And were you able to visit the West Bank?
No, not the West Bank. I've only been to Jerusalem to do my visa interview at the U.S. consulate.
Well,
that's not, after the move. It became the embassy.
Right.
Sure.
Right.
But there was a consulate in Jerusalem and an embassy in Tel Aviv, and I've only been to Jerusalem for one day.
For your visa.
So they give you a 1 day permit. The
and
Israelis.
what did you do in your 1 day?
Yeah.
In Jerusalem.
So it's crazy because I got my admission at NYU in like January 2013.
Okay.
And I applied for this 1 day permit in April 2013. So because school starts in the fall. So
right, and it was the PhD program.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the Israelis, like, they never, the way it works is that you go to some entity in Gaza. It's like an office for the Civil Affairs Administration, which is, I think, one of two administrations that follow the Ramallah-based Palestinian Authority.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Because they're the ones who can coordinate with the Israelis for entry and exit via the Erez crossing, which connects Gaza to 48, Jerusalem, and the West Bank.
Okay.
So in order for you to cross Erez, you have to apply for a permit.
Right.
So I went and I applied for the permit, and I gave them, the
acceptance,
and that I have an appointment at the U.S. consulate in Jerusalem for a 15-minute interview. And the Israelis never got back to me. And then later on, they requested that I go to the crossing to meet with an intelligence officer to assess. And this is routine. It's not unique. For me, I'm lucky. I'm a student. Think about cancer patients who do that. And, like people with terminal illnesses or whatnot. So I went there. I said the whole thing was performative. They walk you through these mazes of like security checks and so on. And then the guy, of course, the officer, speaking in Arabic, just trying to like intimidate me and asking all sorts of questions about my neighbors and neighborhood.
His first language, or
I don't know if it's his first language, but he spoke good Arabic.
Okay.
Yeah. He had like the slogans of like Palestinian factions behind him. Picture of Benjamin Netanyahu. And then so you do this interview and you try to get out of it.
Right. Yeah, just
you know.
yeah, and you got that obviously. Like you got the
And then I
approval eventually.
no, so I went back to Gaza, and then they didn't give me the approval, and I worked with an organization called Gisha,
Okay.
an Israeli human rights organization
Okay.
that helped Palestinians in Gaza with freedom of movement,
Okay.
and then they gave me the permit.
All right.
On the day of the day I was supposed to cross, they held me at the crossing until like 4 p.m. and it was Ramadan, so
Wow.
I called
Yeah.
the lawyers who were supporting me, and I said, I can't. I need, like, if I cross now, I will not be able to make it in time for the for the interview at the consulate. So they reached an understanding with the army that let him cross, spend the night, and then go in the morning to do the interview, and then return to Gaza.
Okay. After much difficulty, you managed to get to Jerusalem. So what was the path? Like you took a car from Gaza, from the northern border, and you drove through 48 to Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Okay.
A cab.
And where did they drop you off in Jerusalem? Outside the old city?
So it was Ramadan,
Okay.
Oh, right.
and the cab driver asked. Of course, it's my first time being in the passenger seat of a car, driving up hills and mountains.
Right.
Gaza,
horrifying.
Gaza is flat, so for
The
me,
West
I'm like,
Bank is
I'm
horrifying.
like looking,
No, the service drivers, they do it.
yeah, like this driver was not like crazy, but
It's scary.
for me, like I've never
Terrain, yeah.
yeah, like yeah. So so I basically it's like 4:30 p.m. After they let me cross, I told him just drop me off at the Aqsa Mosque.
Okay.
So I get there. Of course, like it's super emotional when as you approach the city and you see the walls and you see the Dome of the Rock, and so
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's just like
It's surreal.
it's surreal, and it's just like an hour and 30-minute drive.
Right.
Yeah.
So like this skyline, this panoramic scene is framed in every Palestinian
Of
house.
course.
And you but your understanding of this place is abstract because you've never been there.
You can't go there.
Right.
You can't
yeah,
go.
yeah.
You can't. You're prohibited.
So it's just like, and for the first time, it wasn't my first time because I went, while younger, but like this was the first time
As
I
an
go
adult.
Like
as an
really seeing-
adult,
yeah.
and you see this entire thing in front of you, and you realize how close it is.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up in Amman. We'd always say, like, since I was young, like, it's a 2 hour drive. And, like,
Wow, yeah.
before, they used to do that drive, like, without the border. The hassle is the
Right,
border, right?
Yeah.
The border is a multi-hour affair, but just if it was open, like, 2 hours, you're there.
Yeah, so I arrived at the mosque. I got super emotional. I started crying, of course.
Yeah. Of course.
And so I walked past the guard, and the guard, he basically followed me. He said, how come he like tapped on my shoulder. He was like, how come you walk without saying salam? I think he just wanted to make sure that I was like not trying to like cause any trouble.
Sure.
So like he saw me crying, so he was like, what's going on? So I said,
Was he a Jordanian guard?
no, he was, I don't know, like Jerusalemite, Palestinian. So I said, well, I'm from Gaza, and so he gave me a hug, and he was like, you're sitting in the first row of the Qibli Mosque, the so he like took me. I broke my fast there. I didn't have a smartphone. I traveled,
Of course.
so I asked people to take a picture of me and then
Pictures, yeah.
email it, and the guy like he emailed the picture like weeks later. And then what I did, I basically walked.
Sure.
You
In the
know,
old
I
city.
just walked, and it was Ramadan, so a lot of people that year were allowed to go to Jerusalem from the West Bank, and I it just knowing that this time is limited, and knowing that tomorrow morning I have to go back to Gaza,
Yeah, that's
I had to like absorb as much. Of course, it felt intense because you have
you have also the soldiers, like you're walking through the city,
soldiers
you
and
have soldiers with their rifles standing
yeah.
at each corner basically of the
so
whole
you feel
city.
that the tension, which for me was like foreign because yes, I grew up next to a settlement in Gaza, but I never saw the settlers.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Like the settlers lived beyond walls and high, towers, and we only saw the bulldozers and the tanks, like do incursions in my hometown, but never saw the settlers. But like
Yeah.
for the first time, you see, like you feel the tension, you feel how intense
Yeah, it is a very
Jerusalem
intense
is. But
experience. But it's beautiful.
it's
Like walking
beautiful.
out
It's
سوق العطارين ولا خان الزيت.
I had no idea where I was.
Beautiful smells.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Ramadan. I don't know. Maybe some places were closed. Did you stay till after iftar?
Yeah, I stayed I spent the night.
Okay.
Right. Friends of friends of friends got me a hotel room.
In the old city.
Yeah, so remember I was supposed to go like for the day, come back.
Yeah.
So I didn't have any like anything on me. So the next day I went to the U.S. consulate, did my interview, did my paperwork, returned to Gaza, and I bought kayak, like
Of
the
course,
bread
yeah.
and the what do you call them, the gummy bears, the famous Jerusalem gummy bears.
So let's talk about literature, maybe. Do you? I know you speak and read Hebrew proficiently. What's your exposure been like to Hebrew literature? Yeah.
I think one of the novels that stuck with me is I think it's called in English "Facing the Forest"
Oh.
by A.B. Yehoshua.
Yes. I know that one.
And it's a story of like it's a short story of an Israeli
Forest guard or something
forest guard who someone like an Israeli who gets bored of city life
in a national park.
and then he moves, he becomes a guard at a national park where he's accompanied by a mute Arab something. So yeah, I mean I'm not like I studied Hebrew because I wanted to read the news and of course do my research. But unfortunately though, like since the beginning of the genocide, most of the Hebrew I read is from Telegram channels that I'm sure you all saw the screenshots online.
It's very violent, visceral stuff,
Yeah.
a lot of the time. Yeah, that I know that novel. It's an interesting one. I read about it. I think Sari Maqdisi wrote about it in one article I read by him. And it sort of likens the forest to like the Palestinians that have been cleansed.
Yeah, so like a
Like
fire
the trees,
spreads. Yeah.
The
So like
trees
eventually,
are the remnants or the reminder of the Palestinians.
so the whole storyline is that this guard who's guarding the forest and who lives with this mute Arab who he feels that like there's something wrong going on, there's this tension, and then like he doesn't fully understand why this mute Arab like is just
and it's quite on the nose about the Arab being mute
like, right, so metaphorically I guess. And then like and then this like fire spreads in the forest, and then after the fire spreads it reveals the ruins of an ethnically cleansed Palestinian village. So this is something that I think about every year when those fires happen, when the eucalyptus and all of these like
imported
European invasive happen. So it's like a novel that like I think about almost every year when these fires happen, and then they reveal
the cleansed, the return of the cleansed.
Exactly. So it's people study Hebrew in Palestine. It's
for many reasons.
It's a very popular. I mean, in
Sometimes
Gaza especially.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Business. Is that where you learned Hebrew? Was in Gaza?
Yes, I studied Hebrew. I started from scratch, and then I continued my education here.
Cool.
Yeah. I'm interested to. So you went, this trip to Jerusalem, back to Gaza, that brought you to New York for your graduate
Right.
studies, and now you're in DC as as we mentioned earlier, the U.S. director of the Institute for Palestine Studies. So I'm curious to hear more about your experience there. Specifically in our program, we do a lot of talking about knowledge production. It's important to really think about what kind of knowledge is being, like, if we're talking about the Arab world, who's producing these like academic articles, who's writing these books, who are they writing it about, and who are they writing it for. So there's a lot kind of at play here, and um, a lot of the we one thing that at least has been on my mind a lot is a lot of the articles that we read. I mean, we're here at a U.S. institution in the United States. Most of our classes are in English, and it makes me think a lot about, like, of course, we read a lot of writings from Arab writers, some from outside of the region. I'm not Arab myself, and I'm here in this program. Um, but I don't know.
Wait, you're not?
I surprise everyone. Surprise everyone. I don't know. I'm just curious on your thoughts about knowledge production as a whole, and especially today, like given the context
Right.
of everything that's going on. Who's writing about the Arab world, and who is their audience? Do you think
Mm.
it's pandering? I don't know if pandering is the right word, but is this written for a Western audience, and is that a good or bad thing?
Hmm. I mean, the entire story of Middle East studies as a field, for example, and this is what you guys mainly study here. You
Mm,
familiarize yourself with the literature. Um, the the field has its politics, as Professor Lockman, put it in the title of his book, politics of the field. So,
mm,
like any academic field that studies any type of other, this the study of the Middle East, the study of the Arab world, initially began in the West as part of an an
Right.
mm-hmm,
imperialist project to understand the Orient, quote unquote, and then the field transformed later on with the advent of new trends and of course if you compare um, how the field was influenced by post-colonial studies
yeah,
or the cultural turn or the rise of social history in the 1970s
yeah,
and compare it with the early 20th century or even like you know um, throughout the 20th century when the writings of someone like Bernard Lewis were
yeah,
considered
right,
The top of
yeah,
their
authoritative,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So the field had its has its politics and it affects and it's affected by general trends in funding plays a role,
yeah,
the context where this the where the institutions are located plays a role. So for
right.
example,
right,
in the like 1980s 90s, we had like uh, the rise of a lot of works by scholars and thinkers who were pushing and like an anti-colonial
mm-hmm,
studying key episodes of the anti-colonial history of the
mm,
region, and that continued into the early 20th century. But things will begin to transform now,
Yeah.
yeah,
it's in light of the changes that are taking place with, I mean, the political economy of academia in
Yeah.
general, the role of academia in society, and of course how even like internal dynamics in the United States with regards to how like how the university is seen as part of the current like
yeah,
polarization around social
Of course.
issues, around issues related to identity and
It,
representation
it's
and
a
so
huge
on.
focus of the Trump administration, at least.
I mean, it goes beyond that, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
there are unresolved questions here, political, social, philosophical, related to how people see themselves and how they want these institutions to reflect on certain legacies or certain events and talk about certain histories. So this is fluid and keeps changing, and moments like this generate resistance. Moments of resistance sometimes turn into new they usher into new trends that become then later on key in shaping how people go about understanding the region through this discipline or other disciplines. But in terms of my personal experience, I came to the US in 2013. I started my PhD program, and I realized immediately that I am one of a small number of Palestinians from Gaza who have this privilege of being in a Western academic institution like NYU.
Prestigious, very
And I decided that I'm going to use the resources and this privilege that I have been granted to study Gaza, and I started doing that early on in my program, and then later on I switched my topic for a number of reasons. But I'm still committed to the academic study of, and of course advocating for Gaza beyond academia, and that's why I co-authored and I helped co-edit the book Lighting Gaza as part of my political work. But it's all part of the question of knowledge production.
And of course, you're the director of the Institute for Palestine Studies, which is a storied sort of institution, Palestinian institution that's done a lot to produce knowledge.
Of course, and it's doing so much now.
It is
in terms of its response to the genocide, but it's also in terms of continuing to publish and to empower Palestinian researchers and to
100%.
provide the resources to support more publications and academic study. But I was shocked when I came to the US of how little people knew about Gaza. And not just in general, like even if you look at Palestine studies as like as a field, there weren't many Palestinian academics from Gaza who we were reading their works, or there weren't programs that worked with Palestinian academics on the ground. There weren't Gaza, like the isolation was real,
very real,
and the distance was so vast that I felt it when I left, because that's it, you're outside and that's it, like you're disconnected from that place. So I leveraged my familiarity with the place, my understanding of it, and I've written a couple of papers during my coursework years. But then in 2017, that was like for me an important year, and that defined my career trajectory and the choices that I made. In 2017, I understood that a collapse is going to happen in Gaza. Some sort of an explosion was inevitable, and it wasn't a question of if, but a question of when.
What pushed you to that conclusion?
What made you feel that?
2017 was a really awful year in terms of the blockade. People had access to like an average of 4 hours of electricity a day, and of course the economic conditions in Gaza were, my family was there, so I was aware of what's happening. And at some point, like this, going back to what we were talking about earlier, the Gaza Strip as a place was supposed to be temporary.
Right.
The Gaza Strip as a place where hundreds of thousands of refugees were pushed into, and war and conquest and unrest are not foreign to Palestine. Palestine's, look, by virtue of its location, armies pass through and
from Africa to Asia
and vice versa.
Mediterranean.
So in the First World War, people left Gaza because the city itself became a battlefield for
Right,
months.
between
The Ottomans and the British, and then after the war ended, they returned.
Right.
The same happened probably when Napoleon's armies,
Yeah.
passed through. The same probably happened when Ibrahim Pasha's campaign came through.
Yeah.
Like it's not, war is not foreign. People, So what 48 did, the Nakba, was that, and after the Nakba, what Israel did was this, eternalization of the state of refugeehood inside Gaza.
Yeah.
And the fact that Gaza will become this like territory, impoverished territory with absolutely no resources to support its population, where large segments of population rely on UN aid.
That's Israeli policy.
And that's Israeli policy, but also without any horizon for political resolution.
Yeah.
And adding insult to injury, Israel also after 67 went and built settlements inside Gaza. So if the Gaza Strip is 1% of the total area of historic Palestine, what is today the Gaza Strip, the West Bank, and what is Israel. Think about that. Like after 67, Israel came and took almost 1/4 of the 1%. So Israel also built settlements inside Gaza, on Gaza's most fertile land, with land that has Gaza's most water, like freshwater aquifer resources. So that story.
Yeah, I mean, the lack of political horizon, especially, I feel, is very striking. You got all that going on, and it's not just no political horizon; it's getting worse. Like,
and it's under blockade.
Yeah, like the deal of the century. I remember that.
The deal of the century.
That was like
cutting UNRWA funding, moving the embassy to Jerusalem, and
just worse and worse. Yeah.
And post Arab uprisings, there was this feeling that, especially after like counter revolutionary regimes started winning, and we have this like new wave of tyranny, but it's a different type of it's a type of tyranny that committed from the beginning of not caring about what the street says. So unlike
it's not populist.
Exactly. Not that like pre-Arab uprising regimes were populist, but at least like
initially maybe when they were founded they appealed to mass.
Sure, but you have now you have like regimes that are acting and behaving like the Palestine question is no longer relevant. And that arrangements can be happen regionally while skipping the Palestinian story.
100%.
So all of these conditions, all of these factors created this like sense of political
doom, maybe. Like no horizon.
So it felt so in 2017 I understood that no, like more needs to be done. So a year later I joined the American Friends Service Committee. We did a lot of work on Gaza, including Lighting Gaza, the book. Organized speaking tours, hosted speakers from Gaza, did literary competitions in Gaza, asked young people, helped young people. We worked with Professor Rafat Al-Arair, may he rest in peace. We worked with young people, like empowering them to publish their stories. Did workshops, did a lot of work on the Hill and beyond. With the hope, to convey the sense of urgency and to say that, if nothing meaningful is done with regards to the blockade, with regards to the isolation, with regards to the collapsing economic situation inside Gaza, and of course this, this cannot be just, like economic solutions alone. There has to be like a political opening. But unfortunately, of course, we were just a small number of people
shouting into the void.
Into a massive void.
Really?
Yeah.
I know we talked about this, Jihad, before. I want to ask you about your perspective on this. We talked about, the landscape of advocacy for Palestine in the US. Just the discourse has changed a lot, obviously. One notable thing that you pointed out was certain right-wing pundits taking, like, I don't know what to call them, unprecedented to some extent views from that political group about Palestine, such as Tucker Carlson or Candace Owens. I know you've looked into that a little bit. I'd like your perspective on that. How do you explain that? Why has this happened?
I think if you look at young Americans today, whether they're on the left or on the right, especially like Gen Z, people who are finishing college today, they finish college with large amounts of debt. There aren't you know much opportunities. So if I were an average American college graduate today who's entering this job market in this economy, regardless of my political ideology, I look around and see that there is this massive support for Israel, and Israel is being prioritized, while my concerns and dreams and and um, and my hopes as someone who wants to like achieve basic things in life. So I think there is this sense. I mean, and like there is this growing rejection of Israel.
Right, and there is a sense of outrage too.
An
from what I
outrage,
see.
and I
Like,
think the genocide, of course, people seeing what's happening.
yeah,
So I think those like voices that we're hearing on the right, they're either themselves are done with Israel, or are sensing that there is this shift that's happening
of course.
at the level of the base, and they understand their audiences better than the establishment slash mainstream media outlets
Right.
and politicians. So I think the genocide has exposed what Israel is about.
Yeah, a certain scaffolding.
So I think we're in a watershed moment, but it's not going to be. It's going to take time. It's going to take years for this outrage and for this shift in opinion
Yeah.
and position to translate into policy
Yeah,
changes.
I hope like that sort of energy doesn't, splutter out, because, it might happen. Like, it needs work to be kept, to be mobilized, to be like directed in a certain way.
This is where the role of organizers becomes important and relevant.
So important. So important.
I'm curious. I mean, you mentioned this this maybe shift on the right away from Israel. Either like they really are genuinely feeling the shift away, or maybe, as you said, like they can feel what their audience is. I'm curious. Like, do you feel that it is this genuine shift, and whether or not, if it is, like, is this like still a net good that they're shifting this way, or is it maybe if it's not being done so genuinely, is it? I don't know. Do you see what I'm asking?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think like you know, I see myself as like a guest in this country, and an observer. So
Yeah, yeah.
I look around, and I feel like the like the politics in the United States, um, the it's not just like a question of debate. It's a question of values and worldviews, and I think now is a. I mean, this moment feels exhausting to a lot of Americans, and a lot of people here see how polarized their society has become. And I think there, like, a lot of people are searching for answers and for meaning, and are trying to figure out what works in terms of maintaining their rights, improving their situation, and holding those who represent them accountable. And
Yeah.
I think this sense is like universal, especially like amongst the younger crowd. Um, and I think the past decade or so, um, one thing that happened here in the U.S. that I think we're witnessing a key backlash for, is the fact that the Democratic Party had it co-opted a lot of progressive and social agendas, and that and that led to weakening a lot of movements in the United States that are on the left or progressive, because eventually the the Democratic Party is still a party that's committed to the establishment, status quo. It's not a party that seeks or pursues fundamental changes. This moment generated a sort of backlash. We're seeing it, now we're seeing its implications. This backlash came with promises of improving certain things, of ending certain wars, of improving certain economic conditions. And those who subscribe to the opposite view are seeing that this is not necessarily being honored. So we shall see.
Right.
We shall see how this will unfold. But I think this is a critical moment for people in this country, because it's important for them to ask the right questions and avoid polarization that is based on racial tension and so on. But I think coming out of this moment, we don't know what the political landscape in this country will look like.
Yeah, it's not clear at all.
It seems to me that younger people, regardless of where they come from politically, are questioning Israel. And Palestinians and their advocates in the U.S. have worked on the left, on the on liberals for decades. But now, we're seeing that this is expanding, and more segments of the population in the United States are asking questions, are becoming critical. To what extent this will translate into major shifts? Some assume this is generational and it will stay the same. And the less baby boomers have a say over the key decisions, and the more the people who are younger and who weren't exposed to mainstream media and Fox and CNN play an active role in the political affairs of their country and its foreign policy, that we shall teach. We shall see changes. I think 2028 will be very interesting in that regard.
Yeah, certainly no lack of interesting things that happen in the politics of this country.
Yeah.
Well, Jehad, a pleasure as always. Thank you for coming on this podcast. We really appreciate your perspective, and we appreciate you sharing your time with us.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
See you around next time.
See you next time. It's